Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This was the second match in the quarterfinals of the JCSA High School debate competition for 2026. Let me start off by saying one thing. This was undoubtedly the highest scoring match in this competition so far. And this match has done something that is remarkable for me as a judge. It has provided me with not one, but two debaters who have broken the 80 mark ceiling. That is impressive. That is impressive. And I think both teams should be super proud of themselves. Unfortunately, this is the quarterfinals and the knockout stage. So one team will be exiting this competition, despite what was, as far as I can tell, worthy of a grand finals showdown. So what did we get in this debate? So the motion, this house believes that remote work is a more effective tool at improving employee mental health and interventions in the workplace. We start out with a case from Sharian Smith. Sharian does what the Prime Minister is supposed to do. She defines the key terms and then she presents a status quo. But she didn't just present that status quo, she presented that status quo in a way that set up quite beautifully what her substances were going to be about. She tells us what the causes of stress are. Yes, in her definition of stress, in the definition of what is good for mental health, she tells us what the main things that cause mental health are. And then she tells us that remote work solves all those things and that workplace interventions don't. So, what did we hear from her? We hear that remote work restores time, it allows individuals to align their schedule with the natural productivity cycle, and that it provides them with the ability to gain control over their work environment. These are really interesting and powerful claims. But Sharian went a little bit further than just providing us with claims. Oh, Sharian substantiated those claims. Yes, see, Sharian tells us that it restores time because fundamentally what happens is that individuals find themselves stuck in a workplace commute in traffic. But she didn't just tell us that they find themselves in traffic. She did something, and that thing was quite pivotal to allowing her case to stand in front of Campion College's contention that the traffic thing isn't necessarily a bad thing. She explains that what actually is the problem is that it is a long commute. And why is it a long commute? It is a long commute because individuals are centered, the workplaces are centered within the urban areas, and individuals don't live in the urban areas. Because people don't live in the urban areas, but they work in the urban areas, you find individuals having to undergo a long commute. And that wastes time, and a remote work restores time. Well, Team Campion College preempted. Team Campion College preempted that, I believe. Team Campion College understood that a concern from Team Knox College was going to be the remote work. So what did they say? Well, it's summarized in the case that comes, hey, this thing isn't so bad. See, Abraham tells us that remote work, that rather the long commute is good, rather that the commute is good because it gives and serves as a natural barrier between work and home. He says at the point in time when you leave your workplace and you hop in your car and you're engaging in that commute, while it's wasted time, maybe, it's good because that allows the individual to reset. You're no longer at work, you're going home. That is good. Abraham tells us that the problem is that it is a long commute. If it were a short commute, then everybody would be happy. And even if you're unhappy about the commute, it serves as a mental health tool in as much as it acts as a distinct separation between work and home. That's brilliant, Abraham. The judges loved that. However, it didn't completely, yes. However, it doesn't completely defeat the case because the commute is long. See, you say that the commute is good, but if the commute were short, that would be fine. But the commute is long, and the commute is long, Knox College contends, because we work in a Kingston, but live somewhere else. And that is a problem. So even if the commute has value, it is too long, and that serves as a barrier to mental health. That one analysis that came out from Knox makes that argument stand in the debate, even though it is significantly reduced by Team Campion College. I never thought about traffic being an objectively good thing. We think that was interesting. Now, we go back into Knox College's case about restoring time and the restoration of time. See, this is an objective truth. Campion says, however, that the restoration of time is not going to be used in a way that actually leads to great mental health benefits. Why? Campion tells us that inasmuch as there is no longer a distinct barrier between working and being at home, then the time that is going to be spent that you would have gained back by not commuting, by not doing all of these things, is going to be funneled back into work. See, Campion tells us that actually what happens is that you don't get back this time because there is going to be all of a sudden this deep expectation on your side from remote work that your employers are going to be watching you and scrutinizing you. Now, that feeds into the idea of flexibility. Knox tells us that you get greater flexibility from remote work. You can choose to get up at any point in time. And they say this is particularly important because of Shari and substantive about control, about aligning your schedule to your natural productivity cycle. Yes? And so, Knox College, I commend you very greatly for this. Commend Knox College very greatly for this. Yes, because Knox tells us, right, that your schedule and productivity cycles, they need to be synced in order for you to have great mental health. And in as much as you're working from home, you have that when you're in a strict workplace governed by strict rules and strict meetings and strict managers, you don't get that, and that's bad. You get the ability to get and do the thing that you need to do at the point in time in which you want to do it. And you don't get that from the mental health innovations because those are reactive. At the point in which you are stressed, Knox College tells us, you get up and you go and take a walk, you drink a cup of coffee, you go outside and you scream at the sky, and that serves as an in the moment, right now, stress relief. You don't get that Knox content from Team Campion because the mental health innovations and interventions come after the stress has already been gone and after the stress has already been compiling and after you're already about to burst. But if you're working from home, you can get that kind of release immediately. We think that's really good, right? Again, Campion does attack that argument to some great extent, but it stands in the debate. Now we move into the clash of real socialization versus isolation. See, Team Campion College tells us that you get greater socialization in the workplace because you can talk to the people around you, you can interface with them, you'd see your coworkers and you can appreciate them, you can have a conversation with them. They contend that you get greater isolation in a remote work setting because you're working from home and you're all alone and there's no one around you. Well, Team Knox tells us that me even like the people them in my workplace anyways. Team Knox tells us that those people are vying for competition, that my workplace people aren't my friends because I can choose them to be my friends. There is a competition that exists within the workplace for promotions and all these other things, and so I don't get any true, real socialization in the workplace. We weigh this against Campion College, saying that you get some socialization in the workplace, but you're isolated at home because you're working from home and you're all alone. And that it's not necessarily likely that other individuals will be working from home with you as well. I mean, in the world that Knox is contending where remote work is superior, it's reasonable to assume that there'll be other people working remotely as well. So your wife would be at home, right? And therefore you can get that socialization with your wife, who we hope is a person you actually want to socialize with in as much as you've married that person, as opposed to individuals within your workplace. So while the argument about socialization is significantly undermined by Team Campion, it still stands in the debate. And we think you get greater socialization and greater isolation, and less isolation in Knox's world. What do we get then from the professional, from in terms of saving money? So, and again, at this point in the debate, we are like master debaters, right? And so we're being really critical. You save a lot of money from remote work. Yeah. But that argument is only as valid in the debate in as much as it shows how it helps with mental health outcomes. So yeah, you have to pay for parking, and yeah, you have to pay a lot of money in gas and toll and this and that. But how does that directly affect your mental health? We got a little bit of that. We didn't get enough knocks to make that a really strong standing argument, a really stand strong in argument in the debate. So we hear from Team Campion College, and this is another real argument, and this is the final argument I'm going to present before I release the results, because I know you're anxiously waiting. Campion tells us that you get greater surveillance and scrutiny from your managers when you in a work from home, because you have this fog and haze of productivity. You are no longer measured on your efforts, you're measured on your results, in as much as no one can see your efforts, and that leads to greater surveillance. That leads to bad outcomes because your manager then becomes a real dragon and a bad person, and they micromanage you. And that micromanagement leads into you not having flexibility, not getting all the benefits that you wanted to get from remote work, a lack of separation between work-life balance and all of that. That argument stands in the debate, wasn't sufficiently contended to by Knox. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the judges were away for a while, but we have the results. The team that will win this match, that has won this match, and will advance to the semi-finals of this competition. One team on 286 points. And you'll never believe this. The other team on 285 points, a 1 point difference. This doesn't happen on my panels, but this is the call. With a 1 point difference, the team that wins this match and will be advancing to the next round of competition is a team in Proposition Knox College.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
The best debater from this match with an astounding 81 points is the first speaker from Knox College, Sharian Smith. That was a brilliant Prime Minister speech, Sharian. The other individual who I'd like to give commendations to, who has secured 80 points in this debate, an astounding feat, actually from Campion College, and that was the reply speaker. Yes, Joshua Walcott. Well done, Joshua. Congratulations, Team Knox College. You have advanced to the semifinals of this competition. Ladies and gentlemen, join us in a few moments where we will see the third match in the quarterfinals, where St. George's faces off against Immaculate Conception High School. Until then, ladies and gentlemen,